Let's dive into the world of Texas Hold'em poker. In this video, we'll break down the rules of Texas Hold'em, explain how each round of betting works, and even go over hand rankings so you know exactly what you're aiming for. Let's get started. Texas Hold'em is a poker game where 2 or more players can go head-to-head. In this example, we'll imagine a 6-player game. Here's the layout. You'll get 2 private cards, called hole cards, that only you can see, and there will be 5 community cards placed face-up in the center of the table that everyone can use. Your goal? To make the best 5-card poker hand, using any combination of your 2 hole cards and the 5 community cards. Now, before any cards are even dealt, 2 players have to put money in the pot to get things rolling. This is called the blind system. In each round, 2 players at the table post compulsory bets, known as the small blind and the big blind. The small blind is placed by the player to the left of the dealer, while the big blind is posted by the player to the left of the small blind. These blinds ensure that there's some money in the pot before the cards are dealt, which creates incentive for players to start betting. To keep things fair, the role of dealer and the blinds rotate clockwise around the table after each hand. This way, everyone has a turn paying the blinds and being the dealer. After the blinds are placed, each player is dealt 2 private cards. These are your hole cards, and only you can see them. The first betting round, known as the pre-flop, begins with the player to the left of the big blind. Here's where players decide if they're in or out. Each player has 3 options. Call, match the amount of the big blind to stay in the game. Raise, bet more than the big blind, increasing the stakes for everyone. Fold, discard your hand and sit out for the rest of the round. Each player takes turns making one of these choices. Once everyone has either folded or contributed the same amount of money to the pot, it's time to move on to the next round. The flop, dealing the first 3 community cards. Now, we enter the second betting round, called the flop. Here, the dealer places 3 community cards face up in the center of the table. These are the first of the 5 community cards that all players can use to make their best hand. At this point, players can start forming possible combinations by using their 2 hole cards and the 3 community cards. The first player to act in the flop round is the one closest to the dealer's left, and they have the option to check, pass the decision to the next player without betting. Bet, place money in the pot. Fold, leave the hand and sit out until the next round. If any player bets, everyone else must either call, raise, or fold to stay in the game. The turn, 4th community card, and more betting. After the flop, the dealer places a 4th community card on the table, known as the turn. Now, there are 4 community cards face up on the table, and each player can combine them with their 2 hole cards to make the best 5-card hand possible. Just like in the flop round, players go around the table and decide whether to check, bet, call, raise, or fold. The betting continues until everyone has contributed the same amount to the pot or folded. The river, the 5th and final community card. Now comes the river, the final community card. With this card, there are now 5 community cards on the table, and each player has a total of 7 cards, their 2 hole cards plus the 5 community cards, to form the best possible 5-card hand. This round of betting works just like the previous rounds. Players can check, bet, call, raise, or fold, and this continues until all players have contributed equally or folded. The showdown, revealing hands. After the 4 betting rounds, if there are still multiple players left in the game, it's time for the showdown. This is where each remaining player reveals their 2 hole cards to determine who has the best 5-card poker hand. The player with the highest ranking hand wins the pot. If 2 or more players have the same hand, the pot is split between them. Hand rankings. In Texas Hold'em, it's crucial to understand hand rankings. Here's a quick rundown from the weakest hand to the strongest. High card. If no player has a matching pair or anything stronger, the player with the highest card wins. For example, if you have a king in your hand and nobody else has a pair or better, you win with a king high. 1 pair, 2 cards of the same rank. For instance, 2 8s. 2 pair, 2 different pairs. For example, 2 kings and 2 5s. 3 of a kind. 3 cards of the same rank. An example would be 3 aces. Straight, 5 consecutive cards like 8 to 9, 10, Jack, Queen. An ace can count as either high or low, but cannot wrap around. so ace 2, 3, 4 to 5 is valid, but queen, king, ace 2, 3 is not. Flush, 5 cards of the same suit, not in sequence. For example, 5 diamonds. Full house, a combination of 3 of a kind and a pair, like 3 sevens and 2 nines. 4 of a kind, 4 cards of the same rank, such as 4 nines. The best 2 hands to get are straight flush, 5 consecutive cards of the same suit, like 5 to 6, 7, 8, 9, all in hearts. Royal flush, the ultimate hand, a straight flush with an ace high. 10, jack, queen, king, ace, all of the same suit. This is the rarest and most valuable hand in poker. Understanding these hand rankings is key to knowing when to play aggressively, when to hold back, and when to fold. While poker does involve luck, it's also heavily based on strategy, reading other players, and making calculated decisions. Here are some key strategies that seasoned players use to gain an advantage. 1. Starting hand selection. Not all hands are worth playing. Strong starting hands, like high pairs or consecutive high cards of the same suit, give you a better chance of success, while weaker hands, like unsuited low cards with no straight potential, are best folded. Generally, if you have a hand with an ace-king, ace-queen, or a pair, you're off to a good start. If you have low-value cards with no connectivity, it's often better to fold early. 2. Position matters. Your seat at the table can be an advantage. Players who act last, in the late position, have a significant edge because they get to see how everyone else plays before they make their decision. If you're in an early position, closer to the small and big blinds, play more cautiously and choose stronger hands. If you're in a later position, you can afford to play a wider range of hands since you have more information about other players' intentions. 3. Play aggressively with strong hands. Passive play, or simply calling and checking, rarely builds big pots or puts pressure on opponents. When you have a strong hand, play it aggressively by betting or raising. This approach not only builds the pot, but also forces weaker hands to fold, increasing your chances of winning. 4. Adapt to opponents' styles. Pay attention to how others play. There are typically 4 player types: tight passive, cautious, rarely bets big; loose passive, plays a lot but bets conservatively; tight aggressive, plays selectively but bets strongly; and loose aggressive, bets aggressively, often with any hand. Adapting your strategy based on your opponent's tendencies can give you a big advantage. For example, you can exploit a tight passive player by betting aggressively to make them fold, while you may want to play cautiously against a loose aggressive player who could have anything. 5. Bluff strategically, not frequently. Bluffing can be effective, but only when used sparingly and in the right situations. Bluff when you have a good read on the table and believe your opponents may fold. Timing is crucial. If you bluff too often, opponents will catch on and start calling you. A strategic bluff at the right moment can throw opponents off and win pots you might otherwise lose. 6. Pay attention to betting patterns and tells. Experienced players often look for tells or patterns in opponents' behavior that indicate whether they have a strong or weak hand. For example, players who bet quickly may have a weak hand, while a long pause followed by a large bet might signal confidence. Observe these cues to gain insight into your opponent's hands. Similarly, analyze betting patterns. Frequent raisers are likely aggressive players, while those who often check or fold may be more cautious. 7. Pot odds and equity. Understanding pot odds can help you determine whether calling a bet is worth the potential payoff. Pot odds compare the current pot size to the cost of a call. For example, if there's $100 in the pot and you have to call a $20 bet, you're getting 5.1 odds. Compare this with the odds of making your hand, especially if you're drawing to a flush or a straight. If the pot odds are favorable, calling might be a good choice. 8. Avoid tilt. Going on tilt means letting emotions drive your decisions after a tough loss or a bad beat. When on tilt, players tend to make irrational decisions, which can lead to losing more money. Stay calm and stick to your strategy, even if the cards aren't falling in your favor. Take a break if you feel frustrated to avoid further losses. 9. Be selective with blinds. The blinds can be tricky since you're forced to contribute chips without seeing your hand. Play conservatively with marginal hands from the small blind, since you'll have the least amount of information. From the big blind, you may have more freedom to defend, especially if other players have only called, but avoid getting overly invested in weak hands. 10. Know when to fold. Folding is often one of the hardest yet most crucial skills in poker. Don't feel committed to a hand just because you've already invested chips. If your hand isn't improving and others are betting heavily, it's often better to fold than to chase a losing hand. Folding wisely minimizes losses and allows you to save chips for better opportunities. As with any game, the more you play, the better you'll get. Try practicing online, where many platforms offer free poker games, or gather some friends for a friendly game. Over time, you'll get a feel for the flow of the game, when to bet big and when to play it safe. There you have it. With this knowledge, you're ready to jump into a game of Texas Hold'em poker. Remember, poker is as much about strategy and psychology as it is about the cards in your hand. Play smart, be patient, and have fun at the tables. Good luck.